Hello again, I'm Quinn, and these are not bonsai. These are my Dracaena. And I have a few different varieties here, or really, for the most part, just different color patterns, which you'll see. But today, we're going to be working on this one, which I'm fairly certain is a variety of Dracaena, but as some nurseries like to do, they didn't really label this one. Sometimes you'll buy a plant that just says cactus/succulent. That's a good number of different things it could be. So we're going to repot him because he is just, this is not really good soil. I didn't have good soil when I bought this guy. And you can maybe hear that. It, much like our Echeveria, is just a brick. So apparently on this channel, we're de-brickifying many of my plants. So let's get this guy out of the way for now. Give us a little room to work. And here, you'll see, just one of our tricolor varieties. This one's kind of the newest one I bought that I like the most because of the red. I'd never seen a red variety around. You often see this one, or at least I do in my area. I often see this. It's a green with yellow and then a little red stripe. This seems to have more of a red stripe with green and then yellow in the middle. So that would be, no, not nearly exactly reversed. But you can see here, this one I've repotted and he seems to be fine and in the same kind of soil, but this one had less root mass. It's a little bigger pot, and I think he just hasn't quite filled in as much. Maybe I planted it more recently, I'm not sure. But I cut it here, and you can see I've gotten now 2 branches. And again, what we'll be doing to this very common little house plant is attempting to continue this cut and ramify process to see just about how much branching we can get. And I believe we'll be able to get quite a bit, because you might be able to see, let me give a poker, back in here, this was grown from just a cutting of a stem, or trunk if you will. And it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 original branches. That's what I got when I purchased it. And then I did the very same thing and cut it. We'll show you more detail on that one in a minute. But I just wanted to show you the kind of red variety and how we're ramifying it. And this is kind of a placeholder, just a little group planting. I was running shy on pots and I figured why not consolidate, plus the big deep pot. It's going to give these guys a chance to really grow out, which I'm fine with because having such a variety, I can kind of let these grow, play with those, experiment with that one, give myself options, if you will. Hopefully I don't find any more varieties. I think I've got enough of these at the moment. And this is a little Song of India, I believe it's called. This one doesn't seem to like my care near as much as his friends. It's only grown, I guess maybe that much since I got it a year ago, which to me just doesn't feel like a lot of growth. Maybe he's just a very slow grower. What's on top here looks pretty good, aside from maybe being a little thirsty. He didn't have much roots. I trimmed him pretty hard when I replanted him. And he had real neat fine red roots, which is quite a contrast to these other Dracaena Marginata, I believe is what they're called. They have very large, kind of fat, juicy roots almost, much like a spider plant. So let's get our little Song of India out of here. And then we have this guy, which you can see what happens when they get a little too thirsty. I believe he went a little limp last time. I have since watered him. I'll be watering him again today. Because this one, and this is kind of some of the things you learn as you keep a few of these, needs a lot more water than all the other ones I've showed you so far. And that's because he did have a pretty good root system. He's in a little bit smaller pot. So he really just seems to drink it pretty fast. Maybe I have him in a higher light situation. I do end up moving these plants around quite a bit, just orientation-wise when I'm watering and things. So maybe he was getting more light. We'll give him a good water before we put him back. And then we're to my original, which as you can see are the largest, though they came pretty much this height. And I grew them for a time, and then I cut them. And you can see it, at least here, these 2 branches, we have gotten at least 2 branches per branch. So we've doubled our branch there, which is, nothing to be sad about. And then here, we've done that again. We have 2 pretty decent ones. This one's kind of small. And then we have one little tiny poking one out in the front here, and he's been this way for a year. I don't know what he's waiting on. He seems to not have died, but he's just staying nice and tiny. But that's fine. We have the other 2. So if I can get 2 every time I make a cut, we'll be on track to have a Dracaena like I've never seen before. These actually do, from my experience, seem to at least be fine in what I would call very bright, indirect sun. So for example, when I have them outside in the summer, I'll put them kind of up close to the house so that they get a good bit of morning sun, but once it rises a bit through the afternoon, it's not getting that direct rays, but it is still very bright right there. And then in the evening it does get a little sun as well, and that seems to have grown these pretty nicely. I'm very happy with how they're doing. They don't seem to mind being in these smaller pots, though from my experience their roots do, I don't necessarily want to say grow fast, but they grow big, it seems like, which maybe we'll get an example of here. This is another one I think I should repot today. If I recall correctly, I jammed him into that pot to begin with. It was kind of a potting in a rush, which I have a tendency to do, because when you buy these things, you buy one pot and it's got 3, 4, 5 plants sometimes in it. I almost always feel the need to separate those immediately and get them growing in their own pots, get the roots untangled, get everything situated so we can begin the process of growing a very nice, healthy plant. So, if anything, we're gonna at least pull them out today and take a look at the roots. I won't be working on them at all. I'm gonna try to not hurt them, which I think shouldn't be a problem, because this is some of my old soil, which is just perlite and pumice and a dash of organic matter. So I think that's just gonna fall right away, hopefully. It'll actually be one of the first times I've unpotted something in one of my mixes, because all my plants are typically so new that I'm taking them out of nursery soil, or, as you'll see in that first plant I showed you, just a really terrible mix of whatever I happened to be able to manage at the time. So, today we'll get started with this guy. Let's get to work on our possibly needy Dracaena here. So I almost always use a rock. I never have tied anything down to a pot. And I've had some things that are basically just standing up with rocks, and you leave them alone long enough, and they've so far been fine. I've had 1 or 2 when I came out the next morning that had fallen over, but they survived, so my rock system has worked so far. So let's see. Like I said, I think this guy's really going to come kind of right out of here. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so like I said earlier, they do seem to grow pretty vigorously. These plants have been nothing but easy for me. You can chop the tops, trim the roots, don't water it, water it too much. So on those notes, while I do a little raking here, kind of give you an idea of what it's been like for me to take care of these guys. You do want to keep them dry, but I consider it to be almost like a thirsty succulent. So drier than a succulent, but not so moist as, something outside of that genre, if you will. So they do like a bit more water than your average succulent or cactus even. I have a little cactus forest. Those things, I've watered them like twice a year, and they shoot off little babies, seem to be growing just fine. I even just rotted out my largest one by giving it just the littlest splash of water, but I think it might have been sitting in it, which is almost always going to be what gets a lot of plants, really. Most of the plants you're going to find in nurseries to purchase that are commonly kept in homes just don't like sitting in water. They like to get wet and then dry out. Some of them like to stay a little moist, but moist and wet are two largely different things. So that's why I kind of use these bonsai pots for anything I'm planting, because they have very good drainage typically. They're designed to get the water pushed through the soil and out the bottom. So let's do a little scraping away here, and we'll see what we got. So as you can see, that soil just fell right away. That was perfect. And I can't say I'm displeased with the roots here, because like I'd mentioned earlier in the video, when you get these guys, let's see if we can see this here. There's a big root there you can see I cut, and it's pretty fat, and most of them were that way, but boy, I'm real pleased with how much branching we've gotten here. Let's get that last little bit of stuff out of there, kind of get some of these roots sorted out. And honestly, I said I wasn't going to do any trimming, but no, I don't think I'm going to do any trimming. We'll leave it be. He's doing quite well. He definitely needed a bigger pot, so that was a good thing we pulled him out. Get him a new home. I'll just let him, I think we're going to put him in a bigger pot. Give him a chance to just continue growing. Because I do think I want these to be rather large, since the goal is to eventually have the tops be, as big as I can get them, really. So it needs to be somewhat in proportion. And I'd kind of like a nice assortment of large indoor plants, because they are very colorful and they're so easy. Like I said, with the watering, they do seem to be able to handle a lot of water. I mean, more than you would imagine. Not a lot, I guess. I've not had any of them show any kind of signs of rot or anything of that nature. Honestly, I feel like I've pretty much consistently been underwatering them. I may be an underwaterer by nature. I'm just so worried about rotting things out in the winter. So let's look for a pot over here. I'm thinking it's going to pretty much have to be the biggest one I have to offer. That is rather boring, but it will do the trick for growing. I always have to resist the urge to put the plant in something more fun, because this one just isn't quite ready to be developed in that nature. Now this soil is not very old. And this tree seems perfectly healthy to me. Might not have looked it. Some of these bottom branches are kind of grody, but that's how I got it. My stuff's on top there. Now you can see it's more of a greenish color, and I think that's just because it's been grown for the most part indoors. I got these kind of late in the summer. So, and these do like it to be a bit warmer. I think above 50, and I tend to not try to get to the bottom of something's tolerance. So yeah, you can see on some of these, he definitely was thirsty, which makes sense because there's a lot of roots in there. So what I was saying was, I'm going to reuse this soil because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And you saw how it came right off of those roots, which I just love. Looks like it gave it the opportunity to have airspace in there and push the water through. Yet keep it moist enough to continue growing roots. So very, very happy with how that looks. Like I said, these plants they're just so easy. I think everybody should have some. That'll basically be our little base layer there. See, normally I'd feel like this pot would be too big, but this thing's just grown so well. I repotted this, like I said, I think the middle of summer. So I'm going to do just a little bit of trimming here to just make it kind of flat, so they don't just immediately start curling around in the bottom of the pot again. Okay. How's our height there? I kind of do want this one to be buried rather low in the pot, so that I can develop some roots up top here, because I will be trimming those bottom ones eventually. So we want to make sure we got nice strong roots up top to support all of our beautiful ramification and foliage we will hopefully one day have. I'm just going to pour in some of my bonsai soil here, which, like I said in my last video, I have purchased this at the nursery because it seemed like a good deal and I was there. And I wanted to try it, see how it works compared to my little perlite and pumice mix. Which, honestly, that perlite and pumice mix seemed to work just fine. I'm very happy with the results I got on that, and if it seems cheaper, if I can find it more in bulk. I did get a sifter over the summer, like a sifter type thing to get all the fine dust and stuff out of your soil, because that can clog your screen up. It can create kind of moisture pockets within your soil. So we like to screen the soil, get kind of all the fine dust and particles out, some of your smaller soil pieces or rocks and things. And that gives you a consistent particle size to a degree, obviously. It's not perfect. But that creates kind of a uniform soil structure, which helps your plant grow, kind of like you saw this one doing. Helps all that soil just kind of fall away when you're ready to repot it, so it hasn't been compacted. Alright, well I think we've got that soil worked in rather well. I got to chatting away, and I am going to water him. I'm not sure if I mentioned with my Echeveria yesterday, but when repotting succulents, jades, portulacaria aphids, you do not want to water them after repotting. From my understanding, all the things I just mentioned, they grow their roots in search of water, essentially not in the presence of. So when it is in need of water, it will grow more roots or longer roots, or its roots will search for that moisture. So I typically leave my things of that nature unwatered until I'm seeing kind of new growth happening with the leaves up top, whatever the case may be. If it looks like it's growing, then I feel like I can slowly begin giving it water, because its roots have probably healed, hardened off, and even begun to grow again. But these guys, I feel like, don't mind getting some water after they're repotted. Like I said, I've not had an issue with them before, so we'll give him a good water, and then he is nice and done. I like to spray it down a little with my sprayer here. It kind of keeps it just going all over the place a bit. Then we'll move on to our other guy. Let's get this one out. Let's see what we have here. If I remember, these roots were rather kind of ropey. There weren't many of them, and they were just wrapped all the way around their poor tiny little nursery pot he had been grown in. He feels like he's going to pop right out. So I'm excited to get him in some better soil, because apparently a common issue I have is just not being able to water these in this kind of soil very good. That's when you can see I had mixed in some perlite in hopes to make it a little looser, but I think I'll be done with this variety of soil. You can kind of see here that he wasn't getting water. He's grown all his roots right around the bottom of the pot where the water was collecting. So that's not ideal. We really want our roots up top here so that we can reduce the size of our pots and have more plants. Because that's what I need. More plants. Okay, so pleasant little surprise here. It wasn't so much that they were necessarily only growing around the bottom of the pot. It was that I had to bury it pretty deep, I remember now. Because, again, this one didn't really have a crazy amount of roots when I first planted it. I think it was a pretty new cutting when I got it. So, I'm guessing I planted it deeply to help it stand up straight. And I did my old trusty rock method. So, let me just dig out this little bit left here. But yeah, I'm liking the roots on this guy too. He's done rather well. I think we'll reduce some of these long ones just a bit. I'm not going to go crazy today. Now this one doesn't seem to really need too much sun. So I'm guessing the spot I have him in, he's rather pleased with, because he gets, enough sun. It's nice and warm in my house. Yeah. So I'll just lay down a little base layer of soil that would kind of mound up. Put the middle on. And then I'm not going to plant him as deep in the pot this time, because I have quite a bit more roots So I feel like he'll steady himself up pretty quick. Just taking out any of these that are a little too big, getting out of control. Like I said, I didn't want to go crazy with the pruning. It is still winter here, but I think he'll be rather happy recovering in his current location. And here we are, our finished product for the day. Like I said, I watered them both. I'll keep them in the shade for a few days, which is pretty easy around here. And then I'll just put them back in their normal little homes, and I expect them to be just fine. Probably won't work on these two for quite some time. He's got a big pot to grow into. And well, now that I say that, I realize I'm sure we'll have to repot him probably over the summer sometime. But that's plenty of time for him to fill that pot up again for us. So, thanks again for joining me.